Welcome to Embrace Joy Coaching. My name is Joy LaPiccolo, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how to transform panic into peace. So let's go ahead and get started. Right now there are mass shootings, the weather, problems with hurricanes, and so much. Life comes with stress. Life comes with trauma. We can't avoid it. And so, what do we do in the midst of it? We can actually find peace. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So, before we go ahead and continue, those of you who are listening live, please make sure you turn off your camera and microphone so there's no background noise. Feel free and type your questions in the box below labeled Q&A, or you can email me at joy.embracejoycoaching@gmail.com. I welcome any questions that you have, but we'll go ahead and answer those at the end of the presentation. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a certified life coach specializing in health and trauma. I have over 15 years of teaching experience, and I've worked with trauma survivors for over 20 years. I'm also a public speaker, and I do help people with health and nutrition, especially those who have severe health challenges. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to transform panic into peace using the acronym PIVOT. And we'll go through each one of these. P is for power of perception. I is an in-depth inventory. V is having a vision for the future. N is noticing opportunities. And T, you're going to receive tools for transformation. So we're going to pivot from panic to peace. The impact of panic is all over the place. Now, there is a difference we're going to cover a little bit between panic and anxiety attacks, but I did go ahead and took a look at the definition for what panic is. And a panic attack is sudden. It offers temporary feelings of fear and physical reactions, even in the most ordinary situations. Over 11% of the United States population have experienced one or more panic attacks. That surprised me because I thought it would be a lot higher of a statistic than it actually showed. But as David Ignatius says, panic is a natural human response to danger, but it's one that severely compounds the risk. So if you've had panic attacks before, that's something that you deal with on a regular basis, it is a natural human response. So again, in taking a look at panic attacks versus anxiety attacks, panic attacks, like I said, come on suddenly. Anxiety attacks develop slowly over time. Both of them have very debilitating at times physical reactions. But with an anxiety attack, it may be the physical symptoms are less than what you would have with a panic attack. Anxiety attacks are normally triggered by a situation or an event, but often with panic attacks, it's not necessarily linked with a particular situation. With the physical part of it, our bodies have, they hold on to trauma. Your body is set up to react physically. And so with both panic attacks and anxiety attacks, you can experience rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, sweating, nausea, dizziness, chest pain, or discomfort. So both of those are very common with individuals, no matter what age that you are. In taking a look at how to transform the panic to peace, the P that we're going to talk about is the power of perception. Our thoughts drive our results. If you are thinking that the world is coming to an end, the news is talking about how you're going to run out of toilet paper. There's not going to be enough gas for the whole neighborhood when there's a hurricane coming. You're constantly thinking in your mind, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to handle this at all. Those thoughts then drive your feelings, the feelings of hopelessness, feelings of scarcity, feelings of maybe even blame that there's not enough resources and someone took the last case of water. Those thoughts then lead to action. So if you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling scarcity, you're feeling blame and jealousy, the actions that you have could be detrimental to yourself, to your relationships around you, either by not taking care of yourself or actually acting out in order to receive the supplies that you need. Let's just use that as an example. So the results are probably that you're not going to be a very pleasant person, and you may not be able to handle the trauma that you might be experiencing, maybe because of a hurricane or different other types of situations. The thing with our thoughts, though, they can be negative, they can be positive. So, for example, if we're hearing on the news that there is a hurricane or a tornado, which here in Michigan we had several tornadoes touch down last week. And so you hear that on the news, you get the alert on your phone, and your thought is action. You've prepared for this situation. That's just what happens. We're going to have weather, we're going to have extreme storms, or what other types of trauma that we've gone through. So when you feel empowered because you've planned ahead. That's going to lead to feelings of strength, feelings of courage, which drives actions of actually taking actions, going to a safe space, making sure you grab your bug out bag or whatever you have prepared in case of that particular situation. What's the results? You're safe. Your family is safe because you have been proactive in preparing for that storm, for example. So there's lots of different issues in our lives that drive panic. And so if we prepare for those panic situations, then we can have more positive thoughts going into it, and therefore our results are positive. So one of the things that I was thinking of with the thought pattern, the thought versus thought leading to feelings, feelings leading to actions, and actions to results, is the story of Peter. So for those of you that are not familiar with the story of Peter, he and the other disciples are out on the Sea of Galilee, and the storm is raging, literally a severe storm. They are unsure if they're going to live, and all of a sudden they see this, almost like they think it's a ghost coming towards them. And so they're already scared because of the wind and the waves. And now all of a sudden they see this ghost. Well, it ends up being they realize that it is their friend Jesus. Well, Peter loves his friend so much that all he could think of is forget about the winds, forget about the waves. I want to be with my best friend. So those thoughts led to his feelings of, I'm so glad he's here. I want to be with him. And the actions are, he stepped out of the boat and walked on water to reach his best friend. Now, the results were all of a sudden he got scared. So going back to the feelings, those feelings changed a little bit. And when he got scared, he started to drown. But his best friend grabbed him, and Jesus pulled him up, and they walked on the water back to the boat. Jesus spoke, and the wind and the waves silenced. So, with those results, Peter was very focused on a goal. His focus was on being with his best friend. So, his thoughts and his feelings led him to taking action to reach his best friend. So when you're thinking about the situation that you're in, what are you focusing on? What is your perception of what's going on? So that's the P in pivot, is what is your perception? Because our mindset is so important. We really need to check and see where our thoughts are going. The Our thoughts, again, going back to Peter, Philippians 4:8, Paul actually says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. So, what are you thinking of? Very important to take a look at that. Again, that's Philippians 4:8. The I in pivot is to take a look at your life, an inventory of your life. What is your emotions? What's going on in your body? Are you experiencing a panic attack or an anxiety attack? We went over some of the symptoms, but really stopping and assessing what is going on in your mind, what is going in your body system, spiritually, mentally. Reflect on what's going on around you. If it is a trauma situation, to go ahead and feel those feelings. It's okay to feel scared or feel angry or feel like life is going to end. I mean, those are natural responses. But then in that inventory is to take a look and say, okay, these are my feelings. I'm actually feeling them. Now, do they line up with what is truth? What I mean by that is, let's say, for example, that you're thinking, okay, the world is going to end. I knew I wouldn't be able to handle this. This storm is going to take everything and I will never be able to rebuild. Well, never is, that's not a good word to say, because anything is possible with God. So, what are your core beliefs? So, if your belief is God is there for you, He can do the possible in an impossible situation, what you think is an impossible situation. And then taking a look at your feelings, taking a look at your thoughts, and see if they line up with the truth of Scripture, the truth of your beliefs. For those of you that do not believe in a higher power, then maybe you can think of your core beliefs as far as who you are in this world. But obviously, for me, I am a Christian. I hold on to the truth of Scripture. So I base my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts on what is lining up with Scripture. In doing an inventory of your life, the other thing that is important is what is going on around you. Do you need to remove some toxicity? For example, are there individuals in your life that have toxic thinking? Because when you're around negativity, it breeds negativity. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. But removing toxicity also means removing toxic food. What is going on as far as what you're watching on TV or what you're listening to? Those things can also affect your thoughts and your feelings. One of the things that I thought of, and I actually heard this from a mentor of mine, she says that CNN stands for constant negative news, which means that is toxic. So let's say, for example, the hurricanes and the tornadoes. If you're watching the news 24/7, you're going to have some panic attacks and anxiety attacks because you're constantly focused on the negative. So, how does that line up with your feelings and your actions? So, I encourage you to take an inventory when you're in that situation and figure out, are you basing your thoughts on the truth or on the lies? and remove some of that toxicity. And if you're experiencing stress, that actually is a good thing. Stress can actually move you to taking action. And so when you take action, you actually create a better scenario for your life. V in pivot is to have a vision for the future. If you don't have a vision for the future, you stay stuck. So, if you allow your emotions to just control you, literally, you're going to be stuck. And if you, like Peter, focus on something bigger, focus on being with his best friend, then you are going to get to the point where you want to get. Because each one of us deserves to live a life that we love. So no matter what's going on around us, it's important to have an end goal. If you don't have an end goal, what are you doing? You're being sucked in to the trauma that's going on around you. So I encourage you during this workshop, if you're not listening live, you're doing this later, I encourage you to take the time and actually rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5. How is your life going with your health? For some of us, we're dealing with some health issues, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So if you put yourself as a rating of 1, I encourage you to write down a couple sentences as to what you want your health to be. The reason why I say that is you're then putting a plan of action where you're going to go ahead and move forward. You're going to make sure that you're not being held back by the trials and adversities that we face every single day. So for those of you that don't know me, I was born with a genetic illness that causes problems with my entire organ system, vision, hearing, heart issues, all kinds of things that go on in my life. Well, I could be trapped by that health diagnosis, but instead, of course, at the very beginning, I rated my health as a 1, but then I started thinking of what I wanted my health to look like and what I wanted to do if my health was improved. And with that, I began to focus on different action steps that I could take to manage my symptoms. And by managing my symptoms, I could have a higher quality of life. Now, of course, it's not a cure, it's not a treatment, it hasn't changed my diagnosis, but it has changed my mindset, and I'm able to do more than I thought I was able to do. So that's health. The other thing with the vision is I want you to take time and rate yourself from 1 to 5. How is your relationships going with your partner, with your family, your friends, even your colleagues? Are you having the relationships that you wanted to have? Are they turning out the way that you want them to be? Or do you want a deeper friendships, deeper marriage? If you, like I said, if you score a 1, that just means you have the ability to grow. So come up with a couple sentences of where you want your relationships to be and then start taking action. The other 2 categories that I encourage people to rate is your career, and then time and money freedom is another great category to take a look at. So as a life coach, I actually work with people on creating a vision, creating the life that they would love, taking action steps, figuring out what the action steps are going to be, and walking through that. So there is a coaching program that I have that is 3 months, and we can work one-on-one to create the life that you deserve. Now, I heard a story that I just thought was so funny that kind of lines in with the vision. Is there was a gentleman who wanted to learn how to fish. So he took his fishing pole down to the river, and he's starting to go ahead and fish. And he looks out of the corner of his eye and he sees this gentleman down the brook that's fishing. And every single fish this person caught, which was quite a number of fish, He had a ruler and he would measure the fish, and then occasionally he would cut it off, cut part of it off, and throw part of it back into the river. Well, this gentleman who was learning to fish thought, I need to find out what he's doing because I need to learn how to fish. I want to do it correctly, right? So he walks down and he's talking to this gentleman and he asks him why he's measuring the fish. And the gentleman replies that he needs to make sure the fish will fit in his frying pan. So the ruler was the exact length of whatever his frying pan would, a fish would fit in his frying pan. Well, obviously, he had a very limited vision of his life. So it's important to go ahead and enlarge that vision. Make sure you have no limits, even with the frying pan. So important. I just think that story is so funny. How many of us will go ahead and live a life that's limited beliefs, limited beliefs. So that's the V in pivot. Now the O in pivot is to realize there's actually opportunities around us. And when we're in that trauma situation, we can't think of anything else except what's right in front of our face. What's interesting though is we are missing out on the beauty that's around us. And so I want to go ahead and have us do a quick exercise. And what I want you to do is take the time for about 5 seconds. And I want you to go ahead and just look around wherever you're at in the room or the car and look for anything that is yellow. Just count up the things that are yellow. And now what I want you to do is close your eyes, but not if you're driving. Please don't close your eyes if you're driving. But if you close your eyes, I want you to think of everything that you saw that was red. And you're probably thinking, I thought she said yellow. Well, open up your eyes and now look around where you're at. How many things do you see that were red? See, what happens is our brain is going to focus on what we tell it to focus on. So if we're focusing only on the negative, focusing on the despair, the adversity, we're going to miss red. We're going to miss what's going on around us. It's like we have blinders on. So if we focus on the benefits of the trauma, we're going to change that panic to peace. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is to make a list of the positives, make a list of some of the things that they have learned from the things that they've gone through. So for me, I have gone through my share of traumas, sexual abuse, domestic abuse, many deaths in my family, mentors that I have lost. My health diagnosis obviously was a huge issue in my life. But I have figured out that there were learning experiences through each type of trauma. And so what I always like to tell people is what you experienced is just part of your story. It is a dark night. It's not the rest of your story. Yes, what he went through was horrible. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you have free choice in the world is someone may make a choice and it affects you. You can make a choice that the consequences are carried on from your life on to your children possibly. But what can you do? What can you do with where you're at? Looking at what's going on, looking at what happened and figuring out what are some learning opportunities that you have. So there's this T chart, and Ben Franklin, he's really into self-awareness. So his entire life was looking at how to improve his life and those around him. So he used what's called the T chart. And on the left-hand side, you list what's going on. What were some of the things that have happened to you or are happening to you? Any fears, any failures, any frustrations, any type of adversity that you've had. And so I encourage you to take a piece of paper, fold it in half from left to right, and draw a line down the middle. And up at the top, label on the left-hand side fears, failures, frustrations, or adversity, however way you want to word it. And on the right-hand side is where you're going to list all of the learning opportunities, areas that you were able to forgive, areas that you were able to have fun from learning from those types of traumas. So on the right-hand side, you could label it as abundance. So you go from adversity to abundance. So again, for example, with my health diagnosis, I had doctors that said, you need to get your affairs in order. You're going to be in a wheelchair in 6 months, and you're never going to be able to have children. I could have stayed stuck in those words that were spoken over me. That was part of my trauma, is just hearing those words. Instead, what I realized is I could learn from that diagnosis as to researching what that diagnosis meant, researching types of treatment that maybe people don't realize is out there. It also encouraged me to stand up for myself, to be a better patient advocate, because so many people in the medical community, unfortunately, are not aware how to deal with someone with a rare diagnosis. So I had to learn how to get courageous and speak up for myself. So that was a learning opportunity. In addition, I did a lot of research, like I said, of different treatment options. And now I'm able to help people with nutrition, because that is something that has helped me. So when you look at the adversities that you have faced, what are some learning opportunities that have happened? And if you can't think of any right now, that's okay. Just be aware that there is some learning that's going around behind you. Those, like I said, those blinders, you may not realize how much you're learning from that dark night. Again, that dark night is not the rest of your story. Do not let that be the rest of your story. So that is the O in pivot, is there are opportunities around you, no matter the adversity. Let's get into tools for transformation. Now, some of these tools you're going to think, oh, I've heard that before. I've tried that before. There may be things that work for you. There may be things that work for someone else, and that's okay. I'm just going to offer you some ideas, and then you can take that from there. So a couple things. Attitude of gratitude. Again, I'm sure that you all have heard that the importance of gratitude. But even if you just take a couple minutes before you put your feet on the ground when you wake up, and just be thankful for 2 or 3 things. You're thankful that you have air in your lungs. You're thankful that you have a bed to sleep on. There are different things that you can be grateful for. When you set your day up with that attitude of gratitude, you have a spirit of peace automatically. And when you have a spirit of peace going forward, there's less chance of being overwhelmed with panic. Pursue your dreams. Again, going back to having a vision for the future. You need to have an idea of what to focus on. Peter had a dream to be close to Jesus at all times. Because he had that end goal, he pursued that goal, and he was able to have transformation from being in a boat, scared out of his life, to walking on water with his best friend. So what are some of the dreams that you have? Maybe you have been in an area where you're just so overwhelmed you've stopped dreaming. You're scared to dream because things haven't worked out before. Please reach out to me. I've been there, done that, and I love the fact that I'm able to go ahead and teach others how to live a life that they really do love. Another tool is to take time to recharge. Many of us, we pour into other people and then we're exhausted. And many of you know you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So, what are some ways that you can recharge? What are some ways that you can take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically? Maybe even just one goal is to increase your water intake. Another goal may be making sure that you go to bed at a reasonable time. What are some other ways that you can recharge? Uh, for me personally, I love praise music. For me personally as well, I am very strict about my nutritional supplements. And so that helps me recharge physically. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do self-care. So I encourage you just to write down a couple things that you can make a change this week. Make it a small effort and then just build from there. Another tool is to find positive connections. We cannot live life alone. We were built to live in relationships. So stepping out of the isolation, because oftentimes when we go through adversity, we're going through a panic, we tend to pull away from people instead to reach out, even if it's just a text, couple words to someone, to have that personal connection. So important. And if you are in a situation where you are dealing with panic attacks or anxiety attacks, there are times that you may actually need medication. It may actually be a chemical imbalance. So finding positive connections also means reaching out to a professional to get a figure out if there is a physical manifestation. So please take care of yourself. And like I said, seek feedback from a counselor um, or a trusted friend or a life coach. Very important. So one of the things, the other thing I wanted to mention, let's see where it is, with seeking feedback. If you are in a situation where you are in an abusive situation, things are just overwhelming and you want to go ahead and seek not just professional help, but maybe reach out to a hotline. There is a hotline. I'm giving you a number and I'm going to put it in the description as well. 24/7, you can call them. It is 866-903-3787. So we've gone through several things today with Pivot. P is your perception. Find out where your thoughts are, where they're leading to actions, your feelings, your results. Find out what your mindset actually is. So that's the P in perception. I is doing an in-depth inventory. What are you feeling? What is the toxicity that's in your life? V is creating a vision. So you're not stuck in the adversity, stuck in the negativity. O is noticing the opportunities around you and figuring out what you can learn from the situation that you're in. And T is for the tools of transformation, which I'm sure you could add a lot of other tools to this list. I'm hoping that this webinar has been helpful for you. If you have questions for me, feel free and reach out to me. My website is linktr.ee/being restored to joy. You can also email me at joy.embracejoycoaching@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at joy.embracejoycoaching. I offer a free 30-minute discovery call to find out if doing one-on-one coaching is something that would be a good fit for you. I also do a free 30-minute consultation to see if I can help you with your nutrition. I look forward to talking to you more as to how I can help you. But more than anything, I want to congratulate you for taking the time out of your day to invest in yourself. Again, this is Joy LaPiccolo, and you can transform your panic to peace.